Here's something that will completely change the way you think about getting healthier. Most people are focused on the wrong thing entirely. People spend months counting every single calorie. They cut carbs, skip dessert, drag themselves to the gym when they're exhausted. And the results? Modest at best. But there's one variable quietly destroying all of that effort. It's working against your brain, your gut, and your metabolism simultaneously. Most people never connect the dots. That variable is alcohol. Not rock bottom drinking, not weekend blackouts, just the normal, socially accepted kind that feels completely harmless. A few drinks on a Tuesday, a glass of wine with dinner most nights, a bit more on weekends because you've earned it. Sound familiar? Here's the uncomfortable truth. That pattern, the one that feels totally reasonable, is doing far more damage than you realize. And it's doing it quietly. What if removing just that one thing for 30 days accomplished more than an entire year of dieting ever could? Not because of some trick, not because of willpower, but because alcohol isn't just adding calories to your life. It's actively blocking your body from functioning the way it was designed to function. And the moment you remove it, your body begins resetting faster than you would ever expect. The changes don't trickle in slowly. They hit in layers. Each layer makes the next one easier. And by the time you reach day 30, you will feel like a completely different person operating in a completely different body. Here's exactly where we're going today. First, we're talking about your brain. This is where the earliest and most shocking changes happen, and most people are completely unprepared for it. Then we're going to get into the gut. This is where so much of your daily physical discomfort lives. Discomfort you've probably accepted as just how your body feels now. After that, we're covering appetite and cravings. Because alcohol does something genuinely bizarre to your hunger signals, and once you understand the mechanism, you'll never look at that post-drinking hunger the same way again. Then, we finish with visceral fat and your liver. This is the long game. This is the piece that changes your metabolism at its deepest level and keeps you around longer for the people you love. And at the very end, I'll walk you through 4 practical things that make this 30-day reset not just survivable, but genuinely rewarding while you're in it. Let's start with the brain, because this is where the first wave hits. And this is the piece most people are completely blindsided by. There is a study published in the BMJ. It ran for 30 years. It followed over 500 regular drinkers. Not heavy drinkers, not people society would label as having a problem. These were ordinary people who simply had alcohol present in their weekly lives. People who looked completely fine from the outside. People who probably looked a lot like you or someone you know. What the researchers found was genuinely alarming. Higher alcohol intake was directly linked to accelerated shrinkage of the hippocampus. Let that land for a second. The hippocampus is the region of your brain responsible for memory, for recall, for emotional regulation, for the kind of clear, sharp decision-making that defines your daily quality of life. And people drinking just 2 drinks per night showed triple the rate of hippocampal atrophy compared to people who didn't drink. Not slightly higher. Not a marginal difference. Triple. 3 times the rate of brain shrinkage from what most people consider a completely normal amount of alcohol. That number changes things when you really sit with it. The reason comes down to chemistry. Ethanol, the alcohol itself, and its metabolic byproduct acetaldehyde are both neurotoxic substances. They alter the structure of your brain. Over time, they reduce the actual number of functional neurons. The brain is forced to work harder and harder to retrieve information that should come effortlessly and instantly. That sluggishness you feel when words don't come quickly enough in a conversation. That mental fog that follows you into the afternoon. That sense that your brain is always a half step behind. That's not getting older. That's not stress. That is acetaldehyde, and it has been quietly doing its work every single time you pour a drink. Now here's where it gets genuinely exciting. When you remove alcohol for 30 days, your brain doesn't grow brand new tissue overnight. That's not what happens. But the energetics of your brain, the way it processes and retrieves and communicates, begin to shift almost immediately. Within days, not weeks. Word retrieval gets noticeably faster. Your thinking sharpens. You articulate more clearly in conversations. You feel more present, more engaged, more like yourself. And perhaps the most surprising change of all, anxiety begins to quiet. That low-level, ever-present hum of stress and unease that so many people have accepted as just part of their personality. A significant portion of that anxiety isn't your personality. It's your hippocampal amygdala loop reacting to a constant inflammatory load introduced by alcohol. Remove the load, the loop settles. People who have gone through this describe it in almost exactly the same way. It's like someone turned the lights on all the way. Not on a dimmer anymore, fully, completely on. And once you experience that clarity, you start to realize just how dim things had been. Now let's get into the gut, because this is where your whole body begins to feel different. A study in the American Journal of Physiology's Gastrointestinal and Liver Physiology Journal revealed something important about what regular alcohol does to your microbiome. It doesn't just reduce the good bacteria in your gut, it collapses the diversity of your entire microbial ecosystem. These aren't subtle changes, they're dramatic and far-reaching. Beneficial bacterial strains, including the Bacteroidetes species directly associated with being leaner and having better metabolic health, drop significantly with regular alcohol exposure. What's left behind is a microbial network that has become rigid and stagnant. It loses its ability to adapt to different foods. It loses its flexibility. It essentially gets stuck in a compromised state. But the damage doesn't stop in the gut itself. Alcohol also directly damages the epithelial cells that line your intestines, the cells responsible for controlling what gets absorbed. These cells are held together by what scientists call tight junctions. Think of them as the gatekeepers of your gut wall. Alcohol loosens those junctions. The gates start to fail. Once that barrier weakens, bacterial toxins that should never leave your digestive system begin passing directly into your bloodstream. And this is where everything escalates. The inflammation that follows isn't localized to your gut. It goes systemic. It travels through your blood. It shows up in your joints, your skin, your brain, your energy levels. This is why people who drink regularly carry a kind of full-body heaviness that they can't quite explain or locate. It isn't coming from one place. It's everywhere simultaneously. And here's the part that genuinely surprises people. Most of them have been living with this inflammation for so long that they've completely forgotten what normal feels like. They think the bloating is just how their stomach works. They think the joint stiffness is just aging. They think the fatigue is just life. It isn't. It's inflammation, and it's reversible. When you remove alcohol for 30 days, the gut begins repairing itself faster than almost anyone anticipates. The bloating eases. Digestion stabilizes and becomes more predictable. The gas, the irregularity, the constant puffiness in your face and midsection, it starts to fade. Not after months. Within the first couple of weeks, sometimes sooner. As systemic inflammation drops, the changes show up in places that seem completely unconnected to drinking. Your joints feel more comfortable. Your skin looks visibly clearer. The background fatigue, the one that had become your new normal, begins to lift, and your mood steadies in a way that feels almost unfamiliar because you haven't felt it in so long. This brings us to one of the most overlooked and fascinating parts of this entire conversation. What alcohol actually does to your appetite. Because this one surprises almost everyone. Researchers in a study published in Physiology and Behavior designed a straightforward experiment. They gave participants one of 3 drinks 30 minutes before lunch. Group 1 got a non-alcoholic lager. Group 2 got a lager with 1 unit of alcohol. Group 3 got a lager with 4 units of alcohol. Then they sat down to eat. The results were striking. The group with the highest alcohol intake didn't just eat more food during the meal. They specifically sought out high-fat, high-salt foods with notable intensity. And their hunger didn't normalize once the meal was finished. It stayed elevated throughout the entire remainder of the day. The other groups returned to normal hunger. This group didn't. To understand why, you need to understand your liver's hierarchy of priorities. When alcohol enters your system, your liver immediately treats it as a toxic emergency. Detoxifying the alcohol becomes the single most urgent task. Everything else your liver was doing, including breaking down the fat from the food you just ate, gets paused. Fatty acid oxidation shuts down. The food you consumed doesn't get processed the way it normally would. And your brain, receiving confused and inconsistent energy signals, keeps the hunger running. You've eaten. Your stomach is full, but the metabolic signals that tell your brain to stand down never arrive properly. So the hunger persists. And it persists hard. You know that feeling after a night of drinking where you eat a complete meal and then genuinely want to eat again an hour later? That's not a character flaw. That's biochemistry. Your liver was too busy managing the alcohol to process the food. Your brain never got the all-clear signal. So it kept asking for more fuel even though you'd already supplied it. When you remove alcohol for just 30 days, this resets remarkably fast. Often within a week, sometimes less, the compulsive post-meal urgency disappears. Portion satisfaction returns. Your body starts reading its own fullness signals accurately again. You eat a meal, you feel satisfied, and you stay satisfied. It sounds simple because it should be simple. And when your appetite steadies, everything else steadies with it. Mental clarity improves. Mood stabilizes further. Energy becomes more consistent throughout the day because your brain is no longer being yanked around by contradictory signals from a digestive system operating under the influence of a substance it's trying to eliminate. But now we need to talk about the deepest change, the one that takes slightly longer but delivers the most significant and lasting metabolic payoff of everything we've covered. This is the visceral fat and liver health piece. And if you've been wondering why losing weight feels harder every year despite your best efforts, this section is going to explain a lot. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition established a clear and direct relationship between alcohol consumption frequency and visceral fat accumulation in the body. The more often people drank, and the more they consumed when they did, the higher their visceral fat levels consistently were. And this matters enormously for reasons most people don't fully understand. Visceral fat is not the fat you can grab on the outside of your body. It's not the fat sitting just under your skin. Visceral fat is deep. It surrounds your internal organs. It wraps around your liver, your intestines, your heart. And it doesn't just sit there passively. It actively secretes inflammatory compounds that disrupt hormonal signaling throughout your entire body. It is one of the primary drivers of insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic dysfunction. And it is extraordinarily difficult to lose when your liver is under chronic alcohol-related stress. Here's the mechanism that explains why. Alcohol elevates your circulating triglycerides, the fats moving through your bloodstream. It simultaneously drives up production of VLDL particles. VLDL are the transport vehicles your body uses to carry fat through the blood. More alcohol means more of these vehicles being produced and dispatched throughout your system. At the same time, alcohol suppresses lipoprotein lipase. This is the enzyme your body depends on to actually break fat down and clear it from circulation. It's the cleanup crew. So alcohol is both flooding the system with fat transport vehicles and disabling the cleanup crew simultaneously. The fat builds up. The liver accumulates it. The visceral stores grow. And every single day that pattern repeats, your metabolism takes another hit, your fat-burning machinery gets a little more impaired, your baseline metabolic function drops a little further. This is why people who drink regularly often struggle so intensely with weight, despite eating reasonably well and exercising consistently. The foundational system is compromised before they even start. But here is the genuinely good news, and I want you to really hear this. Liver fat begins dropping within days of removing alcohol. Not after a month, not after 2 weeks, days. The liver is a remarkably resilient organ. Given the chance to recover, it moves fast. And as liver fat drops, insulin sensitivity begins to improve almost immediately alongside it. As insulin sensitivity improves, energy rises, cravings diminish. Fat loss becomes more predictable and consistent. The body starts operating the way it was actually designed to operate. People going through a 30-day reset consistently describe feeling physically lighter before the scale reflects any meaningful change. They feel it before they see it. And that's not imaginary. That's their metabolism unclogging. That's systems that were blocked and burdened for months or years finally getting the chance to run cleanly and efficiently again. The scale will catch up. But the feeling arrives first. And that feeling is one of the most motivating things a person can experience when they're trying to make a lasting change. Now let's talk about how to actually get through 30 days. Because understanding the science is one thing. Putting it into practice when alcohol is woven into your social life is another. The single most important shift you can make is to replace the ritual rather than just eliminating the drink. This distinction matters more than most people realize going in. Your brain isn't attached to the alcohol itself nearly as much as it's attached to the moment, the 5 p.m. exhale, the social drink, the evening wind down after a long day. That moment has become a cue. And your brain will keep reaching for it regardless of whether you've intellectually decided to stop drinking. The cue needs a replacement, not just a removal. Find something to fill that slot. Sparkling water with ice, hop water, a non-alcoholic drink in an actual glass, an electrolyte drink you enjoy, something that marks the same moment of transition, something you can hold, sip, and associate with that shift from the working day into the evening. Your brain will attach to the new ritual faster than you expect. Give it something to attach to. The second strategy is morning movement. 3 to 4 mornings per week, something light and consistent in a fasted state. A 20-minute walk. A gentle bike ride. Nothing intense is required. Morning fasted movement specifically helps your liver oxidize stored fat. It smooths out the energy instability that tends to hit hardest during the first 10 days of an alcohol reset. It also gives you a win early in the day, a sense of forward momentum that carries into your choices later. Starting the day with intentional movement changes how you make decisions all day long. The third strategy is going to sound almost too simple. Use salt strategically. A small amount of sodium through food or an electrolyte drink does something genuinely interesting in your brain. Sodium signaling intersects with dopamine pathways through neurons in the brainstem. A small dose of salt activates these pathways in a way that genuinely reduces the reward-driven urge to reach for something stimulating. It takes the edge off. It quiets that restless, reaching quality that many people feel intensely in the first week of cutting alcohol. It's a small tool, but it works in a surprisingly consistent way. The fourth strategy might be the most underestimated of all. Actively celebrate the early changes as they arrive, because they arrive much sooner than most people expect. Better sleep usually comes first, within the first 4 to 5 days for most people. Then clearer skin. Then the mental sharpness. Then the improved mood. Then the physical lightness. These changes feel small in isolation, but they aren't small. They are your body communicating clearly and directly that it is healing, that the interference has been removed and the systems are coming back online. When you notice them, acknowledge them deliberately. Don't brush them off. Let them register as evidence. Because what you're building in those early days is not just physical health, it's trust. Trust in your own body's ability to change. Trust that the 30 days is producing real results, even when the scale hasn't moved yet. That trust becomes the fuel that carries you through the harder days. Here's what this all comes down to. 30 days. One variable removed. No full lifestyle overhaul. No extreme diet. No expensive program. Just one variable, consistently removed for 1 month. And in that 1 month, your brain starts operating with a clarity you may not have felt in years. Your gut repairs its lining and begins rebuilding diversity in ways that affect your entire body. Your appetite resets and your hunger signals become accurate again for the first time in however long you've been drinking regularly. Your liver begins clearing out and your metabolism starts functioning properly. You feel lighter, sharper, calmer, and more energetic in that order, and faster than you anticipated. Not because 30 days is a magic number, but because it's long enough to feel the real difference. Long enough for your body to move through the initial discomfort and into the clarity on the other side. Long enough to experience what it actually feels like to run on a clean signal. And once you've felt that, once your brain knows what unobstructed actually feels like, going back becomes a choice you make with completely different information than you had before. Most people who complete 30 days don't sprint back to where they started. Not because they suddenly have more willpower, but because the contrast is undeniable once you've lived it from the inside. You will have felt the fog. And then you will have felt what the absence of the fog actually feels like. Those two experiences side by side change the calculation entirely. This isn't about forever. It isn't about identity or labels or giving something up permanently. It's about 30 days of removing one variable and paying attention to what your body tells you when you do. The data from real studies, real people, and real biology all points to the same conclusion. 30 days without alcohol consistently delivers more measurable improvement than most people achieve in a full year of dieting. Not because dieting doesn't matter, but because alcohol is the interference running underneath all of it, quietly blocking, suppressing, and disrupting the very systems your diet is trying to improve. Remove the interference first. Let the systems reset. Then build from there. That is the order that actually works, and your body already knows exactly how to respond when you give it the chance.